ain't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. All right, so today's video, we're going to be talking about Rise of the Powers of 10, number 4, written by Kieran Gillen, with art by RB Silva and color by David Curiel. So before we get into the main meat of this issue, this particular issue does a lot of really compelling things. Though I will say, with the benefit of hindsight, having read X-Men Forever, which, you know, just for clarification, I will not really be talking about anything going on in X-Men Forever in this video. There will be a separate video for that one, but I can't not bring up the fact that having read X-Men Forever immediately after this, which is the way you should read this if you are going to read Rise of the Powers of 10 number 4, you need to read X-Men Forever number 2 immediately after it if you want to make some sense of some things that are going on here. That is actually probably one of my biggest criticisms, though, and I'm going to choose to look at this a couple of different ways. And the one way is that X-Men Forever, while I get it, they kind of want to tell a story that is to greater expand upon what's going on in Rise of the Powers of 10, Fall of the House of X. Really, so far more Rise of the Powers of 10. I feel like it's one of those things where maybe that story should just have better been served put in Rise of the Powers of 10 instead. But that said, considering X-Men Forever is a thing, we kind of just have to accept it for what it is, and I feel like some of the main meat of the story, while yes, I think having X-Men Forever number 2 is a good thing to expand on that story, I feel like the real meat of what probably should have been explained in this issue wound up in that other issue, and that's pretty much my major complaint with the story of this issue. You know, once again, I'm not expecting one single issue to tell a complete story, but I do feel like maybe a lot of the things that come up in X-Men Forever 2 feel like they should have just been put here. They could have been easily addressed and maybe cut back on a couple of other things. But once again, it's not my place to tell a person how to tell their story, but I can definitely criticize it. While I do feel like this is a good issue from a storytelling perspective, I can't not think about the fact that there are so many questions that could have easily have been answered in this issue that show up in another issue of another comic. And I get it, you got to make those sales. I'm not, I'm not against that aspect of it, but this issue just reaffirms to me that I hate putting it this way, but the only good thing going right now in this whole Fall of X business is Fall of the House of X, Rise of the Powers of 10. I will make a concession for X-Men Forever. But yeah, like all the other books, I'm just like, man, and I've said this before, and I feel like I'm about to become a broken record. I'm glad this is ending. Like, I'm very glad that all this is ending. Not because I think the story is like terrible, but just like, because once again, here the story is great, but I feel like all the other stuff that was kind of building up to this or kind of like centering in the middle of this, I feel like it's all just stuff that doesn't need to happen. Once again, I stand by my guns. The Rise of the Powers of 10, Fall of the House of X, whatever, Rise of, you know what I'm talking about. I feel like that should have just been the story. There should not have been any other tie-ins. Like, we should have gotten to a point where we should have just wrapped up X-Men nice and neat, X-Force nice and neat, all the other books nice and neat, and then this Rise of the Powers of 10, Fall of House of X, whatever, that should have been it. That should have been the only books that were being put out. And, you know, if you wanted to make them bigger books, like if you wanted to like go full House of X, Powers of 10, yeah, maybe make each of them like a double issue or maybe like 10 or so pages longer, similar to how House of X was. I feel like that would have been the better move, and it would just have made the most sense. It would have kind of brought down all the convolutedness of what has been done with this. But once again, we're right around the corner. We're right around the corner. This is, by my count, we're pretty close to the end here. We have one more issue of both Fall of the House of X, Rise of the Powers of 10 after this. And yeah, I know a lot of people are upset that Krakoan era is coming to the end, but I mean, look, I think we're all going to be better for it in the end. As far as the art direction here, I felt, RB Silva, I mean, the guy doesn't miss. So, yeah, hey, what are we going to do? What are you going to do? What do you want me to do here? The art's great from start to finish. It's consistent. There's no other artist working on this book. And, once again, I kind of want to walk back a couple of my statements from previous videos. It's not to say that I don't think that artists shouldn't collaborate, but I just want to make it clear when you have two artists whose art styles are completely different from one another and you're just constantly jumping back and forth and there's no real rhyme or reason behind it, that's what I don't like. But here, RB Silva is the artist throughout the entire issue. It is consistent, it is great, it is chef's kiss. And David Curiel doesn't miss on color here. So, you know, this is a very pretty book, even if it is a little bit of a mess in a couple of spots. Now, getting into the main meat of everything going on here from a spoiler perspective, let's just go ahead and get this out here. Xavier's for the streets. Just give him up. Just go ahead and give him up. And to be fair, there are some things that come up in X-Men Forever #2 that, you know, once again, it'll be addressed in that video. But just for right here, right now, what you're reading right now, yeah, Xavier's for the streets. He's done. Just go ahead and get him out of here. Get him up out of here. Xavier has lost his whole ass mind, and we now have a greater idea as to how he got in the front door of Orchis, how he got that front door access to Omega Sentinel and Nimrod. And it's because he gave up Mother Righteous. Now, we know the Mother Righteous was locked away in the No Place X. She was under lock and key. There was no way she could get out. And while some of this may seem weird, why is he giving her up to Orchis? Is because that is his ticket. He knows that Orchis is looking for her. We saw this in, I believe it was in X-Men Forever #1, or it might have been one of the Immortal X-Men issues. Honestly, I can't keep up at this point. But in that, he learned that Orchis was looking for her. So the idea that even with Dr. Stasis being dead, she is still a valuable asset to Orchis because they know what she represents. So they take her in, they bring Xavier in. Now, one thing that is a little bit different is that in, you know, Fall of the House of X, it seems like Xavier is left to just roam free. But in this issue, he is very much under lock and key. They're not letting him roam willy-nilly. And to be fair, it's for good reason. While he is thrown in his lot with Orchis, he is not drinking Orchis's Kool-Aid. He is still of the belief, as we talked about in that previous issue of Fall of the House of X #4, that he wants to protect mutant kind. And something I said in that previous video, and, you know, some people agreed, some people didn't, that, you know, this was how, you know, we kind of got towards the preserve that was depicted in the Powers of 10 portion of the House of X crossover. And in that issue, there is literally a scene where we see something that is pretty much the exact same panel. It probably was ripped straight from that panel and placed in this issue, and it's the scene of the preserve, seeing the elephants, you know, whatnot. This is all straight out of Powers of 10 #1. And we know that, you know, in that particular timeline, year 1000, that the humans, or post-humans by that particular point, they had created this preserve to maintain mutant kind, not because they were trying to do anything benevolent, because it was just a thing that, kind of like how we keep animals in a zoo. They're there for people to view, no matter how much the intentions of a zoo seem to be good. At the end of the day, they are holding mutants hostage and treating them as though they're, you know, zoo attractions. And this is all being done because Xavier knows what the alternative is. He knows that Orchis is an enemy that, while mutant kind could potentially defeat, them defeating Orchis is equally as likely as them losing to Orchis. This is why Xavier is snitching on the humans in Orchis, telling Omega Sentinel and Nimrod which humans are more likely to rebel against them, which humans in the, you know, military field are the ones calling the shots, so Xavier can limit their ability to be effective, thus making Orchis's, you know, rise to power that much more likely. And then also giving Orchis access to nuclear launch codes, because as we saw in Fall of the House of X #4, the X-Men have pretty much decimated Sentinel City. It's not completely destroyed, but the solar energy weapon they were using that was going to completely flash fry humanity has been destroyed. So there's that. You also can't discount the fact that while, yes, Xavier's doing all this, he does not seem happy about it. But here's the thing. While a lot of people are upset that Xavier's given up on the dream at the end of the day is still the dream. It's just a little different. The idea of propping up mutants to give them a fighting chance where, and giving up on humanity, I mean, yeah, that is honestly one of those natural evolutions of a dream, you know, just based on the nature of how Krakoa didn't work, and everything else Moira tried didn't work. She tried working with Xavier. She tried working with Magneto. She tried working with Apocalypse. She tried being a military assassin. She has literally even tried creating a mutant cure. She's done it all. And the only thing she had not done by that point is getting all of the mutants to work together in terms of like the mutants that are the pillars of leadership, getting Xavier, Apocalypse, Magneto, so on and so forth, bringing in Emma Frost, the Quiet Council, all that stuff. That was what she felt was the last thing she hadn't tried. And then when she realized that wasn't a thing, she realized working with the machines was the last thing that she didn't try. But there was one more thing she didn't consider, and that was mutants and AI, artificial intelligence, working together. And that is what Charles is proposing, even though it won't go the way that he's likely trying to push. Now, the question is, why is Orchis going along with all this? I mean, they could just as easily unalive Xavier and move on with their day. Well, the idea here is that, while yes, they do want to destroy mutant kind because they ultimately want to, create the Dominion, join with the Dominion, at the end of the day, this is just more convenient. And artificial intelligence is nothing if not all about efficiency. So yeah, it makes sense that Omega Sentinel and Nimrod would think that, yeah, maybe we would just let you have your little preserve or whatever. It's not going to matter in the grand scheme of things. So, it's not going to be enough to hurt anything. And at the end of the day as well, they also know the X-Men aren't going to side with Xavier on any of this. Why even worry about it? They know they're going to wind up having to unalive most of mutant kind, meaning that even if there are mutants left at the end of all this, there wouldn't be that many left anyway. And that would just make it even easier for them to have that preserve that we had spoken about earlier. Right now, Xavier is selling humanity down the river. And honestly, as I said in the video for Fall of the House of X #4, I don't disagree with the sentiment. I mean, it sucks, the idea that he's turned his back on humanity. But you also got to think about it. At the end of the day, he's got to protect his people. What Xavier's doing, I mean, even when you think about it, it's not necessarily the worst thing on Earth. I mean, yeah, sure, it sucks. Humanity goes away. But you can't really blame mutant kind for feeling the way that they feel. And as far as a story perspective, yeah, this totally tracks. It makes sense. In a real world setting, no, I would not feel this way. I would still understand why it's happening though, but I wouldn't agree with it. Like, I'd be like, it sucks, but it is what it is. At the end of the day, what Charles is doing is fighting for the last crumb of freedom for his people he can get. And unfortunately, that means living on an island fenced off from the rest of the world. I don't think a lot of mutants are going to be happy with that, just being honest. One person who is not convinced of Xavier's loyalty, though, is the Dominion Enigma. Enigma does not care about what Xavier is selling because he's already seen the future. He knows how all this goes. He's been here before. It's nothing that Charles can say or do that has Enigma convinced that he's on board. Even Moira is kind of convinced that Charles can be reasoned with at this point, despite the fact that her and Charles have bad blood now. Even she is starting to kind of buy what Xavier's, selling to her. But Enigma is unconvinced in the slightest. And one of the things that you also have to take into consideration is that while it does seem like Xavier is being incredibly out of pocket, there is a method behind the madness we'll talk about in the next video. Because I feel like, that's the best place to do it. We would be here forever if I tried to talk about it. Maybe that's why they did 2 separate issues. So maybe I walk back no, I'm not going to walk back that. Nah, psych. Anyway, point is here that yes, there is a reason why Xavier's doing what he's doing. But at the end of the day, all of his actions, regardless of how they affect Enigma or don't, his unaliving of both Rachel Summers, aka Ascani, and Rasputin 4, all these actions are in service of something greater because, as we see, despite the fact that they're unalived, they are brought back almost immediately. And that is directly tied in to X-Men Forever #2. What Ascani is planning to do with her new lease on life now is that she realizes they have to find a way to resurrect the Phoenix. And once again, something else that is more greatly addressed in X-Men Forever #2. With that said, the Phoenix has been out of the equation since Mother Righteous stabbed her in the chest. And while Jean is not really 100% dead, she's still kind of vaguely alive. She's still speaking, albeit, very weakly she is speaking. But they have to figure out how to kickstart the Phoenix's resurrection because, for one, Elixir has not been able to heal Jean of her wound, and the 5 as a whole, they cannot resurrect her as she is. So when we get to this point, it's here where we kind of start moving the wheels in the direction of the Phoenix being brought back to life. And this is what absolutely terrifies Enigma to the point he reaches out to Mother Righteous, who is currently in Orchis custody. And this is why he knows what the plan is even greater, because he has no knowledge of anything that happened in No Place X. It's a place he can't see. He can't see the white hot room either. So anything that transpires there is completely out of his, purview. But Mother Righteous, because she was in No Place X, she knows exactly what's going on, even if she doesn't know the whole story. And she gives up the beans to Enigma. She tells everything. She gives up all the tea. And it's here where we learn that Enigma is reaching out to all the other Dominions across all realities. He's putting out an all points bulletin, basically putting the bat signal up in the air, because he knows that he's not going to be able to do this by himself. The Phoenix is an entity who is literally made to destroy Dominions. It's how Dominions were wiped out in the previous timelines. Now, in this case, he wants to stop it before the Phoenix can even get started, and that is why he is trying to get all the Dominions in one place. It seems kind of weird too when you think about it, considering that a Dominion seems like such a singular being, but I mean, there can be more than we have been told this across a lot of House of X and Powers of 10, more specifically Powers of 10. While I know it seemed like there can only be one Dominion, it's very heavily implied, yeah, more than one Dominion can exist. It's just that once a reality seems to have a Dominion, there can't be another one there. And because if the Phoenix can destroy Enigma, who is a Dominion, what would be to stop her being a being who can traverse the multiverse? What would there be to stop her from going after the other Dominions? And that is kind of what I think leads us into that solo Phoenix series. I think the Dominions will be destroyed in this, but I feel like there's going to be some aspect of that that's left dangling that might be addressed in that upcoming Phoenix solo series. But at the end of it all, the Dominions, while initially they don't respond, when it seems like Jean is just about to resurrect by the end of this issue, that is the moment where the Dominions basically say, if Jean resurrects, we riot. You guessed it, obligatory channel outro time. If you're not subscribed to the channel, consider doing so. Clicking that subscribe button and tapping that notification bell ensures that you get more videos just like this one, and you don't miss any of my other content that I drop throughout the week, plus my live streams every Thursday and Saturday. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure you click that like button, keep it plus ultra, and sound off in the comments.